Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to cross the Øresund once again. We're going to go over to Copenhagen in Denmark and we're revisiting one of my favourite Danish breweries. I've always had good beers from these guys. So for this one then we are going to go to Dry and Bitter Brewery for what must be my 8th or 9th review from these guys, possibly 10th, I'm not quite sure. But this one is called the Hey Fem and this beer is a little bit special. This was done to celebrate their 5th anniversary and it's a quintuple dry hopped triple IPA coming in at 10% ABV. So this one I'm sure will be a little bit of a monster. The IPAs that I've had from this brewery before have been really quite nice, and I'm sure so since it's a 5th anniversary beer, this one probably will be very special actually. The first ever beer I had from these guys was the Hobo Chick, which was a lovely West Coast IPA. That's one that I really recommend that you try if you get the chance. The last beers that I had from them, I think it was, I've had a couple, Ancient Paradox, which was a black IPA. That was quite nice to try something darker from them. And the two before that, it was Double Dippy Doo and UW, which I think were both hazy IPAs if I remember correctly. And you know, again, all very good quality beers. I'm sure I've had an Imperial Stout from these guys at one point as well, but it's mainly IPAs of different sorts that these guys produce. But definitely worth checking out this brewery if you're interested in Danish beer, one of my personal favourites. But there's a lot of good beer in Copenhagen these days, and in my mind it's one of the best craft beer cities in the world actually, in terms of the quality of beer that you're going to get. So yeah, check it out. But yeah, looking forward to this one, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. Cool to get a hold of their 5th anniversary beer as well. I always try to get something from these guys when I go across to Kiosk, along with the likes of like Ale Farm and Gamma and stuff like that. There's a few breweries that I always try to pick something up from when I go over to Denmark. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Dry and Bitter before. No doubt there will be some more at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Danish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, but pretty regularly I should say. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Dry and Bitter Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So Dry and Bitter Brewery were founded back in 2015 by the owners of Fermentoren, which is quite a well-known beer bar in Copenhagen. This is Søren Parker Wagner and Jay Pollard, and this originally was a continuation of the Crooked Moon brewing band. But they were also involved in the founding of Ølkollektivet, which is a collective brewing space up in Gørløse, which is kind of to the northwestish of the main central part of Copenhagen, if I'm remembering correctly. But they started this up with a few others who also went on to form their own companies. So they brew their beers up there at Ølkollektivet with Gamma and Ulsnedkeren, and Black Seed, Black Rooster and Ghost Brewing have also brewed their beers there at different points. But in addition to the Copenhagen Fermentoren bar, there's also one in Aarhus, which is over on the Danish mainland, if you like. I always call it that. But both of the Fermentoren bars have exclusive beers that are brewed for them by Dry and Bitter. So if you want to try some of the more random and unusual ones, I do recommend that you go and check out Fermentoren. Quite a nice beer bar actually, and just down from Warpigs and Kiosk. I think it's not Victoria Gade, I forget the name. Is it something Esplanaden, Victoria Esplanaden maybe? But there's a big street very close to the central station in Copenhagen where you'll find Fermentoren, Kiosk, and then you'll find the old fish processing place where you'll get Warpigs as well. But today these guys are brewing in the region of 200,000 litres of beer per year. They might have scaled that up since then actually. I'm sure I read that they were going through an expansion at the moment, but they also have their own beer festival which is called Fermentoren's Flying Circus, and as of February 2020 they've produced 85 different beers according to Untappd, and they're starting to produce some sour beers now as well, which I'll need to check out. Most of the beers that I've had from these guys have been the kind of straight up IPAs and things like that, but I think the next time I go across I will need to see if I can get a hold of one of the sour beers as well, because I've never had any of their sour stuff, but it's supposed to be pretty nice actually. But yeah, in my opinion, a very good Danish brewery, this one, particularly when it comes to the IPAs. The Hobo Chick, in my mind, is a firm favourite. I don't know if they do that beer anymore, but that was a really, really good West Coast IPA, and they're very good when it comes to the hazy and black IPAs as well. I'm not sure if they've done a Brut IPA, but I think that style is kind of dying off a little bit. The Imperial Stout I had from them was good as well, but yeah, if you like your IPAs and your sour beers, then this is a brewery that you definitely want to check out. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Dry and Bitter for the moment. One of my favourite Danish breweries, as I said. If you want to learn more about the brewery, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. The two Fermentorum bars do have their own social media streams as well that you can check out, and of course you can look at the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about the different beers that these guys have done. It's mainly just the kind of core beers that they have on their website, of course. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. I'm really curious to see how this turns out. So the artwork on this one, again, is quite distinctive. The Danish breweries always tend to have pretty good artwork. There you can see on the back, there is the Dry and Bitter Brewing Company symbol there, which is quite nice, and it says on the back here, quintuple dry hopped triple IPA. This year we turned 5 years old, and to celebrate we decided to brew a silly monster of a triple IPA. Hey Fem has been dry hopped to no less than 5 times with 5 different hops: Citra, Racal, Nelson, I'm guessing that would be Nelson Sauvin, Mosaic and Idaho 7. Hey Fem is large, lush, bursting with jubilant tropical flavours. Hear you for the first 5 years, and here's, or thank you, sorry, misreading that. Thank you for the first 5 years, and here's to many more. So yeah, awesome this one. So a 440ml can this. As I said, the hops in this are Citra, Racal, Nelson Sauvin, Mosaic and Idaho 7. So Citra we know is a big kind of mango-y hop. Racal is a very interesting one. I first discovered that with one, I think it was one of the Behemoth beers in New Zealand back in around 2015, probably just around the time that these guys were starting up. It's a lovely hop with like a bit of mango, a bit of apricot, and I'm sure it's got like a little bit of a red fruity character as well, if I remember rightly. Nelson Sauvin we know is the classic kind of white grapes, Mosaic is the tangerine oranges, and Idaho 7 is a kind of passion fruity, stone fruity kind of one from what I remember as well. So really excited to try this one. I think this will be an absolute monster of a beer. So 10% triple IPA. It's been a good while actually since I've had a triple IPA quite like this. So I'm curious as to whether this one will be like a West Coast or whether it will be a New England. I think it's going to be a New England, just looking at the colour of this thing. So it's interesting. I was having a little bit of a chat with the English beer tubers, Craig and Harry and Rob and all of this, and it's interesting because whenever it comes to the New England beers, I've always felt that it's very difficult to go above 8%-ish with these without getting a lot of alcohol out of them, and Harry was pointing out to me that other half are the exception to that rule. So I'm curious to see whether Dry and Bitter are going to, what this beer has in store actually, because I've always felt that if you go above the 8%, that's when you really need to shift over to the West Coast. So hopefully Dry and Bitter can kind of prove my idea wrong there actually. But these guys are a good brewery, if quite capable of proving me wrong on that, I would think, if anyone's going to do it. So yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely kind of, this one's a kind of light orange. If you put the light through this, it actually comes across as kind of amberish. There's a solid there was a solid third finger, but it's fading away just to be a very thin foamy layer at the moment. But that is a kind of perfect white head in my mind. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head there, but overall it looks pretty damn nice, I have to say. I like how this beer looks, and I mean the head, I'm surprised the head isn't maintaining a little bit more, but when it's 10% ABV, it is, it's not surprising that that's fading away. The higher alcohol beers do tend to struggle to maintain their heads actually. So yeah, it looks really nice. Let's take a closer look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. But I will say, what came out of this from when I opened up the can was pretty impressive. So yeah. Oh yeah, this is lovely. The fruitiness to this is really pretty complex, but I will say you can smell the booze in this one. I'm really interested to see how they've balanced this out. But yeah, we'll get past that malty bit then. So straight away with this one, you can smell a little bit of that wheaty quality in there, and you can also get a bit of the oaty creaminess, but to me it smells very kind of like biscuity. You get a lot of that sort of McVitie's digestive type biscuity syrupy thing out of this beer, or the cookies as the Americans would call it. It's got a little bit of that kind of vibe going on to it, and I mean when it's 10%, that's to be expected. I couldn't find what malt base had been used in this one. I did find the different hops though, right enough. But as I've said, one of my big reservations about the hazy IPAs, and this has been from trying like Brewski, Stigbjerg's, Dugas, and even some of the the ones over in Denmark. This is the heaviest one I think I've had. This might actually be the heaviest Danish New England IPA that I've had, come to think of it. I always think that when you start to go above 8.5%, the booziness isn't covered, the oats and things, you start to struggle to cover the alcohol with them, and you maybe need a little bit of caramel and things in there. So I wonder, have they maybe put a little bit of like carapils or biscuit malt, or the other good option might be the English one. The name of it's gone right out of my head now, right enough. I'll think of it later, I'm sure, but to add a little bit of Maris Otter, that's what I was thinking. But to add you need to add a little bit of that in just to soften up the booziness of the beer. And I do wonder, going by the aroma here, if they've done that, because it really does have that sort of biscuity, very slightly caramelly note to it. But yeah, the malt base in this one, you can tell straight away this is a big boozy beer. In terms of the green side of the hops, there's a little bit of, I think there's a wee teeny bit of earthiness in there, but mainly otherwise I find it quite grassy. The earthiness I suspect would come from the mosaic. I've always found that mosaic gives you a little bit of earthiness, but the fruity side of this beer is really interesting. So when I opened the can up here, I really noticed the Nelson Sauvin, like that distinctive white greeny grape. That was what came out to me, but there's a lot of like tropical juiciness in there. You've got apricots, you've got a little bit of a kind of peary thing going on in there as well, which is interesting. Definitely some mangoes. That that can come from both Racal and from Citra, of course. I can't remember if Idaho 7 will give you some of that. I always thought Idaho 7 was more passion fruity, but I don't get too much in the way of passion fruit, come to think of it. It's mainly, I think it's really the Nelson and the Racal that are kind of shining through for me on this. But yeah, there is a little bit of a mango-y note in there. The more I smell of it, the more I can get a little bit of the orange, the tangerine kind of notes from the mosaic too. They come out sort of towards the front of the nose. I think the tropical notes are coming out a little bit deeper in the aroma and more towards the back. But the more I smell of this, the kind of juicier and more sort of white grapey it becomes. So that's quite interesting, but the booziness really does linger in this beer. So for me, fruity wise, nice white grapey notes, little bit of a juicy, oily tangerine orange in there, some mangoes, definitely some apricot-y qualities in there. And it's hard to pick out whether there's anything else really. I mean, the booziness of the beer, the sort of biscuity note, I think it does come across as quite sweet in its malt base, but you're going to get that with such a high alcohol beer. So yeah, just take that in a little bit. There's something in my head just wants to say there's a little bit of an almost farmhousey type vibe to this one as well, like that sort of woody, herbally, vegetal kind of thing, like Alchemist Brewery. It does have a little bit of that vibe to it in the aroma actually, so bear that in mind. That's something that just came into my mind at the back end of the aroma there. But take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of this one before you get stuck into it. But we're going to taste this now and see how we get on. So this one is the Hey Fem, a 10% New England's triple IPA, quintuple dry hopped from Dry and Bitter Brewing, brewed for their 5th anniversary in Copenhagen, or Gørløse, Copenhagen, over in Denmark. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, happy 5th anniversary to Dry and Bitter. Cheers. Yeah, that is a nice beer. It is quite sweet in the malt base as well actually. But that's nicely done. You know, if I'm pretty sure this one will have a little bit of like caramel or something like that in the malt base, because it is a sweeter malt base actually. So maybe what I said about them struggling to go above the sort of 8% is right. Maybe you do have to add in a little bit of caramel, and you know, in fairness, maybe that would explain the colour of this one a little bit actually, because I think quite a lot of when you think about the hazy IPAs, their colours seem to range between like yellowish and some of them can be a little bit more amber like this, but I would suspect that when they're amber like that, that's biscuit malt or carapils or caramel, or maybe even crystal from America or something like that. But I will say this is a lovely beer, so big thumbs up to Dry and Bitter for this one. That's a nice one to celebrate their 10th anniversary, their 5th anniversary with, yeah. And the other thing with this as well is that it's not overly dusty as well. I mean, one of the things that I've always found with the New England beers as well, and I've repeated this in a few videos, you have to let these mellow out a little bit. I always find it's never a good idea to drink New England beers absolutely fresh, because they just feel very green and burny, if you like. And if you have dry hopped ones, I always find that they come across as very dusty. I think you really need to let them sort of mellow out a little bit, and I've got the feeling that I'm catching this one just at a good point when it's been in the can for maybe about 3 weeks. I always think that's, when you've had it in the can for about 3 or 4 weeks, I think that's a good point to drink these in my mind, because they've just mellowed out quite nicely. But yeah, it's a really, really nice beer, that. So where to start with this one then? So middle of your palate, it's this beer, you can feel a little bit of that kind of, that pale malty quality, that blankets the middle of your tongue. It does have a little bit of a slightly thicker kind of wheaty note to it. Just checking if it has. Here it actually says, interestingly enough, it just says boog malt, so it doesn't really have any wheat in it, this one, but I think it does taste just a little bit kind of wheaty and bready in there, but you do get that, you can feel that nice pale malty quality just blanket in the middle of your tongue, and I think towards the back of the palate it does feel a little bit thicker, as if there was a kind of wheaty thing in there. But as you move further forward from that, if you go to the very centre of your palate, you do have a sort of sweet caramel quality to this beer, and as you move out from that, it does gradually get a little bit more kind of like biscuity. There is a bit of crispness in the back of the palate as well, so could there be a little bit of like carapils or something like that in this one? Although, because I've noticed that's a trend amongst the Scandinavian brewers at the moment, when it comes to the hazy IPAs, they are brewing things with a little bit of Pils malt just to give you that kind of crisp drinkability. But to be honest, when it's a 10% monster like this is, yeah, you know, there's no real need to do that. This one is a sipper from any perspective, to be honest with you. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is just a wee touch of carapils in this one, but that sweeter caramelly note that you have in the centre of the palate of this one is really, really nice, and the biscuity notes that come out as you move over to the side of the palate as well, they work really, really well. There are a few, if you go to the front corners of your palate then move in, you will get a few slightly woody undertones to this beer in my mind too. But yeah, I'm surprised to read on that there isn't wheat malt in this one, but I guess the wheat and the caramel might sort of be in competition a little bit, so I can understand that, why they've taken the wheat out. But that is a lovely, lovely beer. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink that again. But you know, I guess would you have to consider this one as hazy now? But yeah, the other thing you'll notice is that when you progress further into the aftertaste with this, if you just go further forward on your tongue, you start to get some of the oaty creaminess out of the beer, and that comes out just on top of those little woody elements that I was talking about as well. But the way the malt base is done in this one is really, really very good. This you know, this probably is the best beer, my favourite beer at least, that I've had from Dry and Bitter. If you've watched the channel before, you will know that I'm a big fan of the West Coast IPAs, and Hobo Chick's a beer that will always stay in my mind. I remember when I tried that and I was just like, damn, that's really bloody good. And it's this one in some ways, some of the sort of sweeter aspects that you get out of this beer really remind me of Hobo Chick in a way. It's just like Hobo Chick's kind of big brother. I can't remember if that was a regular IPA or whether it was a double IPA, but it was really bloody good whatever it was. But yeah, the sweet, dry and bitter, I think, do this very, very well. And they do have a few West Coast IPAs listed on their website, and I'd love to review more of those, but I've just, not seen them. And this is the one that really caught my eye out of what Kiosk had at the time when I was there. So yeah, let's focus on the hoppy side of this then. The malt base is lovely. I think oily malt base actually. Back corners of the palate, you do get a little bit of earthiness out of this one, and that'll be the Mosaic. But as you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, you do get a little bit of that dustiness that you'll get from dry hopping. You can feel that nice kind of dusty, floral aromatic sort of thing, and it does have a little bit of a spicy note to it as you go further forward along the sides of the palate there, and you can feel the sort of floral qualities just ending on the front corners of your palate. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, but still I think you can feel some of that hoppy kind of dusty character sitting there actually, which is really nice. But behind the front curve of the palate, that's where you get that lovely oily bubble where the fruity juicy esters start to roll their way out of the beer, and there is quite a lot going on in this one. So yeah, to me, when you first take this beer in, you get a little bit of a you get a little bit of the darker tropical fruits at the back of that oily bubble there. It's got a wee bit of a kind of passion fruity note to this one, and that'll be both the Racal and the Idaho 7, I think, that'll be giving you that. It does have a little bit of that there, but it comes across, and I think it might be the booziness in the beer that's giving it this, it comes across as almost a little bit like jammy. It's got a little bit of a jammy kind of biscuity type thing to it, which is really interesting. It's almost a little bit medicinal in some ways. But yeah, as you move further forward from that, the beer evolves. You get a little bit more mango out of it, which will be the Citra, and I guess to some extent the Racal as well. You really get some nice lovely mangoes out of it. And then as you push further forward from that, I think it gradually becomes a bit more, it's almost got like a little bit of an apricot-y type note to it, but then as you reach the kind of front edge of the tongue, for me it really leans towards the tangerine oranges, which is the Mosaic. I really like how that goes together in this one. As I say, this is a lovely beer in my mind. And there is. And when you go into the aftertaste with this one, I think that's really when the Nelson Sauvin starts to come out. The white grapey notes you can feel. If you just go right onto the edge of your tongue and you focus on it in the aftertaste, you start to get a little bit of that kind of red fruity thing that I was talking about with the Racal hop, but you also get those lovely Nelson Sauvin green grapey notes as well. The aftertaste of this beer is really lovely because it's some of that sweet caramel in the middle of the palate that's lingering there. A few of the biscuity elements are there as well, but you've got that white grapey and kind of red fruity quality coming out of this beer. This is just a lovely, lovely beer, and for me, this is a sort of, it's almost like a perfect hybrid, if you like, between the West Coast IPAs and that caramelly sweetness that I like from them, and the sort of juiciness that you would expect, the juiciness and smoothness you'd expect of the New England IPAs. I think the fruits are a bit more oily, as you'd expect from a West Coast, but to me this is the kind of perfect blend of those two sub-styles, if you like. So it really just hits the spot for me in so many ways. I'd go as far as saying this is the best beer that I've had from Dry and Bitter so far. I'd be curious to know whether it's possible at a lower ABV, right enough, because this is 10%. But I would be curious to know whether you could pull a beer off like this one at 8%. I guess you would have to have it slightly higher than the 6% bracket or something like that. It would have to have a fair little bit of booziness to it to get the body, and also for the the sort of caramelly flavours to come out in the beer. But as I say, I think this is the best one I've had from Dry and Bitter so far. It's got the juiciness and fruitiness that I've found in Double Dippy Doo and UW and things like that, but it's really got that lovely malt base to it that I liked from the original Hobo Chick as well. So massive thumbs up to Dry and Bitter for this one. This is for me, this really hits, it ticks a lot of boxes for me. Best beer I've had from them in my opinion so far. So yeah, the Hey Femme, lovely, lovely stuff. Let's look at the mouthfeel then, the last little bit to talk about with this beer. So yeah, I'd say this is a lovely, it's quite a full-bodied beer this. The carbonation's really smooth. It leans towards the oily side of things. This is definitely one of the more oily, hazy IPAs that you're going to come across, if that's right. You don't get too much dustiness out of this one. As I said, sometimes when you have dry hopped beers, they can feel very dusty, but you just get a little bit of that on the edge of the palate there, which is quite nice. But this is really one of the more oily, hazy type New England IPAs that you're going to come across. In terms of the hoppy bitterness that you get out of this beer, I think at most this one is about 40 IBUs. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a bit lower than that and 30, but I think it might be around the 40 mark, this one, and you do need a little bit more bitterness to balance the beer out when it's as sweet as this, so that's a good point to make about it. The centre of your palate is very smooth, but at the same time really quite sweet and oily in the centre of the palate too, and the fruits in this beer are really lovely and oily. I mean, for me, this is just a really, really nice beer. The way that the fruits go together in this, like the passion fruit, the slightly darker jammy passion fruits at the back, the mangoes that come out, the sort of apricot-y notes that are in there as well, and then the oily orange, and then in the aftertaste you get a little bit of that red fruity, almost, is it red currant maybe? Red curranty type flavours, and the kind of white green grapey notes of the Nelson Sauvin, you know. The way everything goes together in this beer is just top notch. This is the best one I've had so far from Dry and Bitter. I really need to get a hold of some of their other West Coast IPAs, because as I say, that's a style that I'm really starting to get back into at the moment, but I have to say this I think might be the best one that I've had from them so far. So happy 5th anniversary to them. This is just a lovely beer to celebrate it with, so I was quite lucky to come across this one in Kiosk when I was over there. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. The Hey Femme, the 5th anniversary IPA, a quintuple dry hopped triple IPA coming in at 10% ABV from Dry and Bitter Brewing over in Gørløse in Copenhagen in Denmark. Just a lovely, lovely beer. For me, a sort of almost perfect hybrid between the West Coast IPA and the New England IPA. The maltiness, the sweet maltiness and oily fruits of a West Coast IPA, but the smoothness and juiciness at the same time of the New England style, just top notch. And at 10% ABV, I will say that is a little bit dangerously drinkable. I can feel it going to my head already actually. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Dry and Bitter Brewing as well. We will return to this brewery at some point soon, and I thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Dry and Bitter, go to Copenhagen, look at some of the beer places around there, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Hey Femme Quintuple Dry Hopped Triple IPA, 10% ABV, brewed for the 5th anniversary of Dry and Bitter Brewing over in Gørløse, Copenhagen, Denmark. Till the next time, Slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers.